things that I wanted to specifically look at the most, you know, for 100% fact, right? When I saw the Warhammer 40K like trailer that came out, right, a while ago, I thought it was pretty cool personally, right? I thought it was really, really, really cool to see the Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, which I'll definitely be playing it when it comes out. Um so apparently Force Gaming has started playing a little bit, and I would want to hear if because they delayed the game, right? They delayed the game, so I'm wondering if maybe the game being delayed made it a little bit more better, you know. So we'll see if they polished it, they improved some things, you know. I'm very curious of what Force Gaming has to talk about specifically on Warhammer 40K. So like I said, I'm not like, I don't know too much about Warhammer 40K, right? The only thing I hear about is snippets and stuff about from Angry Joe, because Angry Joe is a big Warhammer 40K fan, and then also my my VR chat Papa or so. My VR dad is such a nerd with 40 Warhammer 40K, so he always references a lot of Warhammer 40K. And that's probably why I learned a little bit from him. I learned a little bit from him and a little bit from Angry Joe, but I only know very, very, very little. I don't know that much specifically, but who knows? Maybe this game might get me into it, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I just thought it looked very, very cool or so to see like thousands and thousands of like the enemies or so on the screen. You know, it kind of remind me of what is it, DayZ or so, that specific zombie movie where there was like a bunch of zombies on screen or so. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that. So I kind of want to see like if you know in the first 25 hours that he played or so, how good is it? You know, let's take a look, shall we?
Hey everyone, welcome back. So last week we got our hands on a preview build of Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. This included 1 campaign mission and 2 multiplayer operations. And I gotta say, for what little content was available, I played a significant amount of time, mainly because it was a lot of fun. The core loop of playing this game, stomping through levels as a hulking Space Marine while tearing through never-ending waves of aliens, it was just very satisfying. After my time with the game here over this past week, I am just really looking forward to seeing everything else it has to offer upon full release. I have played 25 hours of Space Marine 2 so far. Here's what I think about it. While there is some exposition, pauses to appreciate the environment, build some narrative, and a few cutscenes.
Dude, this looks so good though. Like, I ain't gonna lie, this looks really good though. The scenery itself, like when him walking down, it looks really great.
95% of my time playing was nothing but pure, uninterrupted combat, so it's a good thing that the combat feels fantastic. I mean, I love it. You're smashing through hordes of enemies using a mix of melee, ranged attacks, and defensive moves in a sort of dance that reminded...
That's really cool that there's execution. There's also executions that I'm just noticing, or so that he's doing executions on the enemies. I think that's pretty cool.
Me a lot of Shadow of Mordor. You'll use like big sweeping AoE attacks to deal with the massive hordes of basic enemies.
Oh, that's so cool. What the fuck?
For the larger, I guess we could call them
yeah,
elites,
holy crap, it's so
also
bloody.
Paying close attention for any reactive maneuvers you need to make, because besides dealing damage, avoiding taking damage is a big focus in combat. This includes things like dodging ranged shots from snipers that have a charge up indicated by a green laser prior to them blasting, blocking and or parrying any incoming common attacks, which will be marked with these blue indicators, and dodging the non-parryable, non-blockable heavy attacks that are marked with these red ones. For all of the incoming special attacks, you are basically given this opportunity for a perfect response, which if done in proper timing, results in a perfect parry or perfect dodge, both of which let you follow up with a counter shot. Now, this not only does some extra damage to the enemy, but it also restores 1 pip of your armor, which is vital because keeping your armor topped off is the #1 survival tool. Armor is essentially like an overshield that will deplete before you take any health damage. So as you receive damage, your armor will slowly go down, but then also it regenerates when you are out of combat, whereas health doesn't automatically regenerate ever. It requires the use of a consumable to fill back up. So your main goal is to reduce taking health damage as much as possible, which you do by keeping your armor full. So beyond nailing those perfect parries and dodges that result in you landing a counter and getting more armor, you can also execute any near dead enemies to regain a pip of armor on top of that. Now, these executes each come with unique animations of you ending the enemy's existence, and during the entirety of that, you are also invulnerable to taking any damage. And all of these systems, with all of them combined, like I said, it makes combat sort of feel like a bit of a dance. You're attacking using combos that amount to spamming left and right click, which are your ranged and melee, but also alternating that spamming with variations by holding down a charge, pausing in between a combo, or swapping stances for different attack patterns. So depending on which threats are in your immediate vicinity and what it is they're doing, the combination of what you're doing is going to vary. Yes, you'll be clearing out the hordes of weaker enemies using the
Dude, look at all of this though. This looks so cool to look at. This is the one thing that I think this is really cool about this is the one thing that kind of gravitated towards me towards the game, is this, like, look how many enemies there are on the screen. Like that is just so cool to look at. You could just go, just like literally just completely like just murder all of these people on the screen or so. I think it's pretty neat. So
and AoE attacks and grenades, while also parrying and dodging any of the blue or red indicators that pop up, following up with counter shots to regain some armor, executing weakened enemies to regain more armor, as well as take advantage of the invulnerability. And you'll also want to pay attention to priority targets like ranged enemies or enemies calling in for reinforcements, which you can interrupt by hitting with a charged attack. You also have that dodge with iframes that can be spammed, although there is an animation cooldown in between dodging, during which you can be hit. Combat might look hectic and crazy, almost overwhelming at times, but honestly, the more I played, the more it started to feel really straightforward and organized. Like, for every moment while you're waiting through these hordes, there is an ideal thing you can be doing. It's sort of all a matter of learning what that is as you play. And as I kept playing, getting more comfortable with my character, with all of their attack patterns, moves, the ways of dealing damage and dealing with the enemies, it got more and more satisfying, to the point where being in the middle of 100 enemies kind of feels the same as facing off against just 2 or 3 of them. There's this feeling of flow while you're in combat. Like, I'll be standing in the middle of this huge group, it'll be something like this. Like, I'll cleave a few times to work down the smaller enemies, parry a blue attack, counter, cleave again, toss a grenade, dodge a red attack, counter, cleave, execute a low health enemy, cleave, dodge, counter, heavy ranged attack to interrupt that guy calling for reinforcements, cleave again, dodge, counter. The whole flow of combat, it really just goes like this the entire time, and it feels so satisfying once you get it down. Largely, this is in part due to these great animations and sounds, along with,
because they are the Space Marines, the Captain America of power level in Warhammer universe. Really,
what has been pretty flawless performance for me personally. Like, it feels good, it looks good, and it ran smoothly on my rig the entire time. So yeah, combat 5 stars, like, amazing. I absolutely
Really? 5 stars? Really? You're saying the combat is really that good? Okay. All right. I'll be interested to see.
really loved it. So that is the combat itself, but what about the content, the things that you're doing while executing this combat? Well, like I said, we had access to a single campaign mission as well as 2 multiplayer operations. So for the campaign mission, this was called Vods Song. We were told that it is from roughly around the midpoint of the story campaign. Now, I don't want to spoil any of the narrative parts of it, but we did see and do a few interesting things that I'd like to point out. So while cleaving our way through the hordes, we encountered things like multiple world building sections where we had a time to sort of take a moment, pause, and soak.
What the fuck? Yeah, that's so cool looking as. Oh my god, that's so cool. Look at that.
In the environment. It looks like they've done a good job of executing on that grim feeling of the 40K universe. Also, the scale of everything was impressive, from the massive towering structures to the never-ending waves of enemies pouring through the streets and the well-oiled military machinery that was there to confront them. It's just all so darn gritty and cool looking. I really appreciated it. There's also quite a bit of enemy variety. You've got the basic Tyranid hordes that would like run up and try to swarm all around you, and then you've got larger, more elite variations of those, like these dual-wielding melee knights, the ranged snipers, the stealth assassins, the bombers. We got ones that would.
Dude, man, I ain't gonna lie, these executions are pretty nice to do though. It looks pretty cool. It kind of gives me Doom, where Doom you can execute a lot of enemies in different ways or so. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So
toss out landmines. There were the floating squid things that were all about supporting and buffing the other Tyranid enemies. We also came across some bad guy Space Marines. Apologies, I'm not really up on all of my Space Marine lore and factions and all of that, but these were kind of cool looking. They were like ethereal and they would explode into this cosmic confetti when you killed them. I thought it looked really
whoa,
neat.
what the
There's also a
fuck?
couple of mini bosses like the massive hulking
It's pixie dust. It's literally pixie dust, you know?
Karn effects that has this bull charge.
Oh, they got
which
boss
shoot out
fights
acid
too.
in addition
Okay.
to have some just a really heavy hitting.
I'll be interested to see how the boss fights are done in this game.
Melee attacks. For one section of the mission, we were given access to our jump packs, which would let us fly up high into the air and then smash down, cratering into anyone unfortunate enough to be landed upon. This was one of my favorite things from the original.
They are the Chaos Space Marines. That's who they are. The confetti, the confetti exploding ones, I assume, right? Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay.
Original game, so I'm happy they brought back the jetpack sections here in Space Marine 2. Also, at various intervals, we would come across these stations that would let us swap out our kit, letting us change our melee and ranged weapon choices. These included things like marksman bolt carbines, bolt rifles, incinerators, chain swords, power swords, combat knives, plasma and bolt pistols. Much of the expected 40k weaponry did seem to be present. And then the mission all ended with a big boss encounter. Again, not something I want to spoil, but it was genuinely interesting in terms of its mechanics, and also it was a bit difficult. We failed 1 or 2 times before being able to finish the fight. So this one mission that we did took us slightly over an hour to complete. Now I will say,
Whoa, jeez, holy shit, almost an hour?
we were playing on the second difficulty, so it is likely going to be shorter if you're playing on the first difficulty. The developer has said that we can expect the total campaign length to run around 10 to 12 hours, but again, this is likely going to depend on the difficulty that you're playing on, as well as the skill that you're playing at. Okay, so beyond the campaign mission in this preview, like I said, we got to take a look at operations. Operations are one of the 2 types of multiplayer that are going to be in the game come release. Now, the other multiplayer, called Eternal War, is this 6 vs 6 competitive PvP mode where you go in and compete over objectives like killing the opposing team, capturing points, etc. Now, this is what I was most looking forward to, so I was a bit bummed that this mode wasn't included in the preview build. However, what we did get to play, I also really enjoyed. Operations are handcrafted missions where you play as one of 6
Tactical Assault, Vanguard, Bulwark, Sniper, and Heavy.
distinct classes with up to 2 other people moving through levels that act as sort of side stories to the main campaign. In fact, one of the operations we had access to was a direct reference to events that we saw take place in the campaign mission that we had access to. Funny enough, also, operations, they actually remind me a bit of Warhammer 40k Darktide. No joke. At least in terms of their structure. It works like this. You're just moving through what are relatively linear levels, fighting groups of enemies, and these groups will be mixed up from one run to a next. You might see a different combination of enemies in any given section. There's also multiple objectives for you to clear as you go throughout, and occasionally side bosses can appear in the middle of a mission. I wouldn't say it has quite the depth or variety of the Darktide missions, but it is very similar in its overall structure, almost like a streamlined version of what they did in that game. So the 2 operations we had access to were Inferno, where Titus asks us to block the Tyranid advance long enough for his team to be able to withdraw. So we need to go in, detonate.
Holy shit, dude. Look at his scenery in and on itself. I see Grey Knight, so maybe we get to fight the demons. Oh, really? Okay. You guys can let me know a little bit more information on stuff on the Warhammer 40k thing when it comes out or so. You guys can let me know or so if you guys know about it, you know, give me some information specifically. This looks cool though. This scene right here looks really, really, really cool.
A nearby refinery and then set off a massive explosion
Holy
right on top
shit.
of the Tyranid swarms. And the second operation, Decapitation, had us chasing down a Hive Tyrant, luring him to a supply bridge that we would detonate, and if that didn't do the trick, we would have to chase down and eliminate the swarm leader ourselves. Spoiler, it didn't do the trick, and we had to chase down and eliminate it ourselves. So yeah, you're just moving through these levels, taking on the hordes of Tyranids, completing objectives at these various intervals, and managing your...
It's almost like a mix of like of course I know that the older games they had like similar like this, but but I never played them, right? It gives me like Left 4 Dead vibes or so, you know?
resources.
Like
Try
the amount of hordes come after you, or so they jump on you, they try to kill you and attack you and everything like that, right? And you move through the levels and everything like that. That's what it
trying
kind
to
of
stay
reminds me
alive.
of.
There's a set number of revives for every mission. The harder the difficulty you play on, the harder the enemies, but also the more numerous the enemies, the more variety of enemies you're going to see, and also the fewer revives you get. In addition to this, occasionally while you're playing through the mission, you're going to come across things like mini bosses. These can spawn at certain points throughout moving through a mission's levels. The two mini bosses that we saw were the Neurothrope, this giant floating squid looking thing. He would pulsate out these AoE rings. He had a few ranged blast attacks like these big globs he would shoot out, or this sweeping beam attack, and he would also place damaging pools on the ground that you had to avoid. And then there was the Carnifex mini boss. This was the same type of boss that we saw in that one campaign mission. He could show up in these operations. He once again had big melee cleaves. He could shoot acid. He had a ground slam, and he would do this bull rush charge where you can actually guide him into walls, and if you do so successfully, it stuns him momentarily. And then there was also just a full-on boss fight in one of the two operations that we saw. This was against that Hive Tyrant. He had a ton of different attacks, lots of huge lunging sweeps that he would do that you would have to dodge.
I love to hear that, like different variety of move sets or so. That's really good. I like that.
Because you couldn't block or parry them. This actually made for a lot of potential opportunities, if done perfectly, to get encounter shots, which was kind of nice. He would also place down these damaging AoE pools for you to avoid. He had these ranged sweeping attacks.
God damn, he does so much damage. Holy shit, look at his HP. Holy fuck, that's a lot of damage.
A large arc that at one player that you would have to dodge. Would also periodically summon in additional Tyranids for you to take out. And he had this shout that would pulsate out in damage rings that you could avoid by doing your iframe dodge right as the ring passed over. Now, while these levels are
God damn, it's like an Elden Ring boss. Holy shit.
very linear, you're going through, you're clearing the enemies. They do have like these occasional branching paths where they might split momentarily and then meet up like 10 to 20 seconds later, but they are linear, but you do still have to pay a bit of attention. You want to be looking around because all along the edges and in a select few alcoves in each of the levels are very valuable pickups that you need to be on the lookout for. Now, a lot of this stuff is to just keep you going because this game, especially on the higher difficulties, you are limited on resources. You're limited on health, you're limited on ammo, and you're taking a lot of damage. So you got to keep refilling your reserves. So you're going to find health kits.
Oh, interesting. So it does have the mechanic for Left 4 Dead or so, where you have to go get ammo, and then like at the checkpoint or so, whatever, you got to restock on like supplies and everything.
You can carry by default a maximum of 2 of these at.
But like I said, I know if these mechanics were in the older previous, titles of the Warhammer stuff, I didn't play them or so. The only knowledge that I know about specifically of this mechanic or so is from Left 4 Dead, of course,
Any given time, you're going to find ammo crates. This is universal ammo. It'll work for whatever ranged weapon type, but you're going to be pretty limited on the number of crates you have, although occasionally you will find crates that have unlimited ammo for particular sections of levels. You're also going to find a large variety of grenade types. You can pick and equip these, and then you use them. Once you're out, you'll have to find more to repick up. You will find what's called an armor boost, which gives you actually 1 extra bonus pip of armor on top of the ones you have by default. And then occasionally you'll come across a guardian relic. This lets the holder of the relic self-revive upon death, which is very convenient, especially at not capping out on your limited number of revives per match. And on top of that, every single level has what is called a hidden armory data. It's this floating skull, which if found can then be used to permanently upgrade one of your weapons. Now there again are 4 difficulty tiers. Things get significantly more difficult. The enemies that you're facing against, the amount of damage they're doing, the variety, the number of enemies that you're coming up against. Even just moving from the tier 1 difficulty to tier 2 provided a significant jump in challenge in difficulty. But with that, you get increased mission rewards. So in completing a mission, you will be rewarded experience for the class that you're playing, as well as the weapons that you're using. Both of these have progression systems that you level up and make them.
Thunder Warhammer Ophelian Liberation Gamma. You got Relic, you got, what is it, Artificer, or however you want to pronounce it or so.
better. You're also given currency, which is used for upgrading your weapons, as well as purchasing cosmetic unlocks, and the armory data, which once again is used for powering up your weapons into these higher rarities. The rewards that you get will be scaling with the difficulty, so that means the higher the difficulty, the more experience, the more currency, and the higher rarity of data, weapon upgrade data that you find. So there were 6 operations in total listed in the build that we played.
I hope you're doing well,
had access to the first 2 of these, and from what I've read, these 6 are the 6 that the game will be launching with, and then they plan to add additional ones with free updates post-release. I will say I do wish there were a bit more than 6 to start, but even as is, it can offer a fair bit of replayability, especially.
I'd be very interested to see if they'll add like DLC or so for some of these missions. That would be really cool if they just build more upon it. That would be really cool. I would love to see that personally.
With those 4 difficulty tiers to play through, that is at least if you're interested in leveling up.
Yeah, it's the new Warhammer, game that's coming out later this year, I think. What's the release date of that? What's the release date of this game again? Warhammer 40K. Space Marine 2. What is the release date? September 9th it's coming out. September 9th this game is going to be coming out. So it's going to be very interesting to see. So yeah.
Classes and weapons, because if not, well, it might not take too long for you to play through all 6 operations once or twice. On average, a single mission took us between 30 and 60 minutes to complete, depending, well, on a lot of variables. Yes, depending on the difficulty that we played on, but also depending on how many extra hordes got called in that we didn't properly interrupt, or how many extra side bosses were spawned throughout the encounter. The higher the difficulty will make things take longer. Enemies take longer to kill. They're also deadlier, so you have to play more carefully, more reserved. You've got less ammo to work with. All of these things can increase a mission's duration. And I'll also say that even after all of my time playing this game, I didn't get too very far into
Warhammer
the
40K.
tier 3 difficulty. I never completed a single match on tier 3. It was that much of a challenge. Though worth mentioning here, at this point in time, I was playing the game by myself. It was solo. My mates weren't available at the time. Although I will add that the AI in this game is pretty good. You always have AI teammates, even if you're not playing with any other real people. There will be 2 AI teammates in there by default, and they're pretty good. At least they never die. Like literally, I never saw an AI teammate die once, and they will always revive you as well if you happen to die.
Oh, thank God, dude. I was kind of hoping that the AI specific, because we all know for a fact, right, with AIs when you're playing by yourself or so, it can kind of be a little bit of a hit or a miss or sometimes with them. Especially what is it? The last game that had teammate AIs was the Suicide Squad or so. I saw it specifically, and it wasn't really that great. So I was kind of really hoping. I was kind of a little bit nervous or so, specifically on the Warhammer play. Good thing it's a little bit, they're good at least. So
the AI in this thing is pretty good, but yeah, the game can be quite difficult. Let's talk a bit about the details and specifics about things like the classes and progression. So for classes, as mentioned, when you play the multiplayer, you are asked to pick from one of 6 available classes. Here's a basic rundown of what they do. The tactical class has a scan that will reveal enemies in an area and then also make them more vulnerable to damage. For weapons, he can choose between any of the ranged main hand weapons in the game, the only class that can do that. He also has a bolt pistol for offhand and a chainsword for melee options. This appears to be just a good all-arounder range class, especially since it's the only class that can use any of the main hand weapon types in the game. The assault class has a jump pack that enables enhanced dashes and powerful jump slams. Doesn't have a main hand weapon, but instead has a pistol offhand. Really, melee is the main focus of this class. With him, you can choose to use the Thunderhammer, Chainsword, or Power Fist. Really fun class to play.
Oh, you can fist people in this game? Hey, let's go.
The jump pack movement and targeting is a little clunky, but the Thunderhammer just feels incredible to use. If you like melee and you like dodging attacks, seems like assault is the way to go. The Vanguard has a grapnel launcher. This allows you to propel towards an enemy with a diving kick. You can choose between carbines or a Melta rifle in the main hand. You've got a bolt pistol offhand and a combat knife or chainsword for melee. This is actually the class we liked the least. It just felt a bit squishy, didn't seem to hit as hard as the other classes, and also didn't really provide the utility that would be beneficial for a group, at least from what little we saw. The Bulwark, this was my main class. It is your big tank. He's got the chapter banner. You place it on the ground and it will restore armor to all squad members within an area. And then
What the fuck? That's pretty OP. What the hell?
even later upgrades would have it damaging enemies in that area as well. Really, really good ability. No main hand option. Instead, you have a shield and a pistol offhand, as well as either a chain sword, power sword, or power fist for melee. Very, very strong tank class. The shield absorbs all basic attacks, including ranged attacks. If played well, this just seems like a great PvE class. The sniper is what you expect. They've got a camo cloak that will conceal you until your next attack. You can choose between bolt snipers or SMGs with a bolt pistol offhand, and your melee is a combat knife. Range stealth, just always nice, pretty straightforward class. And then finally, the sixth class is the heavy, who has the ability Iron Halo that creates a powerful barrier blocking all range damage in front of them. No melee option, unfortunately. Instead, you've got your heavy bolter or heavy plasma incinerators as your main weapon. Really, really powerful ranged attack, and the Iron Halo ability is great, but boy, not being able to melee, kind of a big bummer. I don't know about that. I should mention as well that when you form a squad, you cannot have more than one Space Marine of each of the classes, so everyone's gonna have to pick and choose, fighting
Oh, okay. Okay, I see.
over their favorites, right? All right, progression and customization. There's quite a bit of this. So first you get your perk tree. Every class has its own perk tree. As you play, you level up, unlocking new perks within.
Let's say you got core, you have team, you have gear, and you have signature. What's a gear? Class perk. After a ground pound, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. And unlock at level 14. Oh, interesting. Huh.
Each level for 24.
Let's see, what's the signature one? Jump pack leap deals damage to all enemies in the takeoff area. Oh, okay.
Total unlocks as you go through. These are divided into core, team, gear, and signature skills. Core skills usually affect the basic playstyle of your class. So for example, the assault class has various melee core skills, like not being knocked back whenever charging a heavy melee attack. Team skills, as they imply, are buffs that help your entire team. Things like shorter cooldowns for everyone, increased melee damage, or faster armor regeneration. Gear skills are very class specific. So for the jump pack class, most of these perks were about improving your ground slam, whereas for the Bulwark, all of these would either improve your banner or your shield abilities. And then signature are super powerful buffs at the very end of each of the trees. So on my main class, the Bulwark, I got to choose between dropping a free grenade whenever my armor depleted, my perfect parries resulting in instantly capacitating even elite enemies, or not being interrupted as long as I ever have any armor left. Really, really strong stuff. Now, as you level, you move horizontally across the tree, unlocking new perks in each category along the way. Eventually, once you have everything unlocked, you're able to pick one from each vertical row to have active at any given time. There's also weapon progression in the game as well. You gain experience by using weapons in missions. You level them up, unlocking upgrades. These include versions, so you start with the standard version of a weapon that can then be upgraded to higher rarities. These are Mastercraft, Artificer, and then Relic qualities. With each tier, you have multiple options within those to choose from, with the choices altering things about the weapon, like they will change the weapon damage, spread, speed, range, cleave damage, and more options depending on the weapon type. And then there's also weapon perk trees.
What the fuck? There's perks for these things too? Holy shit. Oh my god. Holy fuck.
These give you two paths to choose from. There is some overlap as you progress where you can swap back and forth between the two, but each one of the trees just comes with various additional enhancements for that particular weapon. And then cosmetics. This is Warhammer after all. Half of the game's fun is all about having a cool coat of paint. So you start off with a...
Can I have a rainbow unicorn Warhammer outfit? You can't, it can't be pretty cool. It can't be goated or stuff if you don't have one like that. I'm just saying.
A few default colors for your base outfit, and then from there's tons of unlocks rewarded via playing the game. Basically, the more missions that you complete or the more PvP matches you win, the more armor sets you unlock, getting visually more interesting along the way. There's also color and emblem skins available for various Space Marine chapters. I counted 18 of these in total in the base game, and then 12 additional ones that were locked behind DLC. Although I'll say even with the DLC sets, there seems to be quite a lot of visual and color combinations and variety just in the base game. At least I was happy with what's available. I'm not sure like what Warhammer fanatics will think about this, especially if you have an affinity to one of the Space Marine chapters that is locked behind DLC. Rip, that kind of sucks, right? You are able to customize just about everything, by the way, from the emblem and colors on your helm, pauldrons, breastplate, war gear, gauntlets, and greaves, to then adding various adornments on top of all of that. Weapons also have cosmetic unlocks that will be tied to any weapon upgrade that you've unlocked for that weapon. And then there's this thing called trials, a little small additional bit of content. Essentially, every class has 3 trials that they can complete. This rewards additional upgrade currency and resources. They're sort of just like these mini combat challenges and tiny arenas. You're asked to complete a set of objectives within a certain time period. If you complete all 3 requirements, that gives you a gold star. At least from my experience, this was very easy. I got a gold star in all 3 on my bulwark in the very first try. And that pretty much does it for our overview of my time with Space Marine 2. I gotta say, all in all, I had a really fun time playing this game. Even though I was restricted to a single campaign mission and 2 operations, I just wanted to keep on playing. Like, long after my friends were done, I was grinding operations with my AI teammates, leveling up the bulwark class along with my plasma pistol and power sword, just to check out the upgrades and improvements that I got along the way, and just to keep playing the game because I was enjoying the combat that much. I am very much looking forward to the full release of the game, seeing what the campaign has to offer, going through the rest of the operations, but really it's the 6 vs 6 PvP mode that I cannot wait to get my hands on. It was just stupid good fun in the original Space Marine, so I'm hoping they deliver here as well. But yeah, at its core, from what I've seen, Space Marine 2, it is just plain fun to play. The combat is so satisfying, really enjoyable, and I'm excited to spend more time with the game. So Space Marine 2 is currently set to release on September 9th. If I end up with review codes, I will certainly do a full video review of the final version. I think if anything, one of the biggest potential downfalls for this game might be the amount of content that it has. Like, a lot of times when developers say that their game is X hours long, you'll see people finish it in like half that time, right? So if they're saying 10 to 12 and people are finishing it in 5 to 6 plus 6 operations and then just the PvP, that could be a little light for people. I think it really depends, though, on how you approach the game. If you want to repeat the operations, play on the higher difficulties, level up your class and your weapons. But if you're just going through one time, if it takes you 6 hours to finish the campaign, and then you play through all 6 operations, which take you 30 minutes to an hour each, that's not going to be, and you're not interested in the PvP, like, it really is going to depend on the people. If you're interested in replaying operations, if you care about the PvP, if you want to play the campaign on more than one difficulty, I think we're going to just see a wide array of opinions about this game's content, depending on how people approach it. Because I feel like it could definitely be the case that some people are going to, quote, play through everything and then be done in like under 15 hours, whereas other people could easily get 50 plus hours out of it. I mean, hey, look, I sunk over 20 hours in just 2 operations and 1 campaign mission. I mean, I enjoyed what little is here so much that frankly, I think it's kind of odd that they canceled their planned pre-release open beta. Yes, they were gonna have an open beta for this game prior to launch.
Oh, what? Really? They're gonna, what? Why?
And then they came out and said, no, we're not going to do it. We need to work on the game more. It's not ready yet. We're going to get it finished for launch and then it's going to come out. And yeah, I don't get it. After spending my time with it, from everything I've seen, it is great. Like, I'm really, really enjoying it. I didn't notice any major bugs. I think maybe I got stuck in the terrain briefly on a single mission, but that was about it. Nothing major at all. And it ran flawlessly for me, although I do also have a pretty high-end system. So maybe they're running into performance issues on some mid to lower tier rigs. Who knows? Honestly, that's probably the main thing I could think of that might cause them to have canceled that open beta, because gameplay wise, yeah, everything I saw was a blast. But I guess we will see very, very soon when the game fully releases in early September if there are any widespread issues. But that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this preview of Space Marine 2. Like I said, I've enjoyed the game. I am planning to play the full release. I will do a full version, full review for the...
Okay. In Warhammer races, you had human, Eldar, elf, Necron, undead, and Tyrannid, and orc, which is the orc. Okay. Demons exist in a different realm. If they manage to invade into this realm, that means it's GG's. I see. And what are we fighting against, Dark? Are we fighting against Tyrannids? Is that what we're fighting against, or are we fighting against demons in this one? This is definitely really cool though. There's a lot of good shots in here specifically. I ain't gonna lie though, some of these are pretty cool. That's why like I'm not gonna lie, cause like this kind of piqued my interest because of the amount of like enemies there are on the screen specifically. You know, I thought this was really interesting or so. Seems like it's more focused on Tyranid. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely this shot, I ain't gonna lie though. This shot is this seeing this or so specifically, that shit was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very interested in the game, of course, ever since it was announced back what, a year ago or so. I was definitely very interested to see how this game is going to be played out. The previous game they focused on orcs. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, nonetheless, though, I'll definitely be interested to see this game. I'll be very interested to see how this game is played out. I'm definitely gonna try to see if I can play it on day 1 or so. Like, of course, I'm gonna try. I'll try to play it on day 1, and you know, we'll play the game, play the story, and then do some of the missions, and maybe dabble a little bit on the PvP. But I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be pretty shit on the PvP for this game personally. But yeah, no, like I may not be like a super like super well in depth or so about the Warhammer 40k. You know, I'm not really like I'm not gonna say I'm a fan or so, right? But because I've never played any of the previous titles, right? But this definitely does pique my interest nonetheless, though, because I thought it was basically pretty cool. I kind of liked it though. It kind of gave me like it basically like the kind of Gears of War vibe, because I've never got the chance to play Gears of War, so it kind of feels like big muscly dudes or so, just kind of like, you know, kind of murdering things or so. I don't know. It just kind of reminded me of Gears of War, how it is in the older Gears of War, where like big muscly men or so, just like kind of like killing things. You know, I thought it was like, damn, dude, he's cool. He's so big. Yeah. Nonetheless, though, yeah, I'll be interested. I'll definitely be interested. Yeah, tyrants or so. So I'll be very interesting to see these kinds to see this one. So. But we'll see how it is or so. You know, I'm very interested. But yeah, you guys can let me down in the comment sections down below specifically. The lore of the Warhammer is huge. I only recently getting into it. Oh, okay. I know that my VR papa he's such a he's a bit of a nerd or so for Warhammer 40k stuff. So he knows way more than I do. So, but yeah, you know, you guys can let me know down in the comment sections down below what you guys think or so. I'll definitely be playing it. You know, I'll definitely be checking it out on stream or so when it comes out. I'll give it a try. Why not? It doesn't hurt, right? And yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And